Hi everyone, welcome back for another live of the IBD Hub. I'm Julia DeMauro, the founder of the IBD Hub, and today I have a very special guest, David Basulto, founder of Archdaily. Hi, David. How are you today?
Hello, Julia. Thank you very much for this invitation.
No, of course. I'm very happy to have you here, and I'm extremely excited to discuss this topic with you. So, today we're going to talk about the age of innovation in the architectural field. And I'm really curious to get to know your experience and your point of view on the field, because we never had that before. So, could you tell us first a little bit about yourself and how you started with Archdaily? How did Archdaily how did you give birth to Archdaily?
Of course. Well, I'm an architect by training. I am someone who's very passionate about architectural design. I am someone who, during formation years, could spend a lot of time in the library. I had the luck to go to Universidad Católica in Chile, one of the best schools in Latin America that had a huge library, and I was consuming architectural knowledge constantly. And then came the internet. And I met my partner who was also in the same school, but we have never met before. But was this guy like doing the masters, two years older than me, and came one day to me. He said, "Hey, I know that you know a lot about the internet. You're into blogs and stuff." And I think, he said, that the internet can really have an impact in the quality of life. And when he said this to me, by thinking about the future of the internet, this was 2005. I told him, I don't know you, but I believe you. Yes, I do think that the quality of life can be improved through information because it's going to impact everything. And by going deep into our conversations, we understood that cities are very complex processes, and there used to be a big asymmetry of information. New projects, private or public, decisions being done, not in closed doors, but without much knowledge of people. Maybe participatory processes were a thing in Europe, and we were seeing that as an inspiration of what we wanted to do from Latin America to open the conversation, to showcase what was happening. And of course, that we seized the power of the internet, free platforms, open knowledge, and we started to do it in that way. Maybe if this happened 10 years before, we would have to create a TV channel, a newspaper, but we were able to use these free blogging platforms and to start sharing. And very quickly we understood that one of the shortcuts were actually the architects, because the architects are one of the most important, not the only, but a very important actor in city making. And if architects could do a better job because they have better access to information, we could have better cities. It was as simple as that. And we have an Archdaily Plataforma Arquitectura in Latin America, and then Archdaily started from that thesis to help architects have access to better knowledge, to better information, to do things in a better way, to open their mind.
Yeah, it's a super important mission that you have there. I think definitely it is really impactful to have be aware of all the projects that are going on everywhere in the world and who is participating in them. I remember the first time that I was an intern back then. I think I was like 21 or something. I was doing like a summer internship, and we got published in Archdaily. And for us, it was like, oh my God, like this is incredible, because it gives credibility to the people that work for the project as well as the project in itself. And it's also a huge center of knowledge of all the projects that have been going on everywhere in the world. So people can really get inspired by each other and, move forward in innovation and keep getting motivated rather than being just in their own box, I think. But when you started, which language was it on? Was it in Spanish or was it in English?
Yeah, no, everything started in Spanish and
Yeah.
in a very instinctive way. Today, I tell you the story in a beautiful way, like the series of coincidences. But at that moment, was just doing something that we believe in. We had a lot of passion, and things started to happen. We were doing this in Spanish, but there was. I remember that moment when we're always publishing these projects, and we always started to see that why people from other countries were reading this site. And I remember a very particular case that was a Colombian architect, Giancarlo Mazzanti, that one of his first major projects in Latin America, that was the Biblioteca España, he sent it to us through our contact form and we published it. And 3 days after that publication, he wrote to us like, David, I'm very grateful. After you published the library, in only 3 days, I've been contacted by more than 14 publications from around the world after they saw it on the site. And this was the first time that we started to understand in a way what was happening. This idea that we had to do this online was going into, let's say, into the offline, was being the source of information for many magazines that were strong at that time. But the most important was when we met Giancarlo, he told us that these magazines were from US, China, Japan, and Italy, countries who do not speak Spanish. And in a way, I don't know, they use Google Translate or something, but we saw that the table was flipping, because when you are in the Southern Hemisphere, you are used that all the sources of knowledge come in English, and they will come from London, Milano, New York. So we saw that really the promise of the internet to decentralize network was happening. And that led us to say, we need to do this in English. The publishers are not doing it because they are selling paper. That is their business. They are not going to put their content online because it goes against their business model. They are in a comfort zone. And we say, let's do it. Let's start doing this in English. Let's go to the world. Let's adapt the name because architectural platform is too long. We need something more catchy, more fast. We came up with Archdaily, and we just started to do the same, but in English.
Was it difficult at first to convince architects to publish their projects and make them see the benefits of doing PR through your platform?
I think that it was very easy because this is hard-coded into the architect. When I told you where I will spend much of my time when I was studying was the library. Yeah. And we as architects, we never stop learning. And we do that through, before it was the magazines, the books, and every architect that I will visit, you will always see this fantastic library. Many years and a lot of money put into building their library of knowledge. Yeah. But it was not just the projects. It is also to travel. Architects, maybe we prefer to go to Rotterdam than to an island on the Caribbean, because we want to see architecture. We want to be exposed to this. So we're in this constant search. So we're very used to exchange knowledge. This is also part of it has always been part of the profession. We share what we're doing to the world, and others are seeing it. And they take some ideas, some iterations. Something happens in your mind when you're charged with this, and you produce something new. And if this new piece of architecture is relevant, can add value, it will be published, and others will see it. So this makes this virtuous cycle of exchange of knowledge in architecture. And for me, this is very connected to, in a way, how we perform architecture today in the modern era. Even if it's a bit outdated, the modern architecture that started in the past century is, in a way, the model that we're following. And for modern architecture, that maybe we'll talk a little after, like when it was like scaling, like embracing a new model of production, to get together among architects was super important. The congresses of modern architecture reunited architects that were thinking the same, that wanted to advance. This made that they would get together tens of times to exchange what they were doing in housing experiments, little houses. So it has always been part. So when we ask architects that we want to publish their work, first in Spanish and then in English, for them, it was always obvious. And also they will appreciate that these crazy Chileans will go to their office in New York or will call them on the phone to Norway, that we will be interested. I think
Yeah.
everybody was like curious because it was, I think, the first time that a global architecture network was being built.
Oh, that's really amazing. We never know what's behind it, right? Like when we see Archdaily, that we don't think necessarily about the whole network that you built behind it of architects and how you got them excited to be published. For me, as well as bringing clients to the architects that publish, it's also an opportunity. Well, at least one of the things that I've learned at university when I was doing architecture from a tutor was like, it's not about reinventing the wheel every time when you design. It's about taking inspiration and putting it in different contexts. So I think that in that way, like having all these projects and researching and being inspired, you can put together some of the qualities of the design to just translate it into an innovative solution for your own country or your own context and community. So that's great. And I was wondering, according to you, how is the profession been evolving? Because I have an opinion, but I'm curious about yours.
Oh, this I think is interesting because in a way we have a little perspective now. Processes tend to be much faster. I think architecture was very, if we look backwards, was a bit slow, but it tried to be fast. Mm-hmm. And I really like history because it gives us the possibility to understand what we're doing today. Sure. And for me, modern architecture was a very interesting moment in which architecture wanted to help the world. In between wars, there was a need to scale architecture. We had to almost rebuild Europe, do big housing in America, and we could not use the previous models. Mm-hmm. And it was a time when the production, the machines started to inspire architects. Le Corbusier was looking at ships. There was this phrase, the house as a machine for living in. And obviously we could not do that with the past aesthetics and ways of production. So that was really a moment in which we scaled. We started to produce housing in the same way that we were producing cars. And architecture took a very big evolution because it was also more rational. We even tried to rationalize men through the modular. What was that? It was when we say there is one set of dimensions, because if we want to repeat everything the same, we need to use that. Of course, that we look at it today, we say this failed. Was even a European tall men was not the reality to scale, but we had that need and we used what was available. So I think that was a very interesting moment of the first leap, I would say, in architecture. And the architect also started to become more transversal. The Bauhaus, I think, is an amazing example of a group of diverse professions producing things that were from the spoon to the city. And these things started to happen more and more and more, but I think eventually architecture started to shift more strongly towards the arts, got a little bit lost. But then in the context of the crazy 90s, of the globalization, architecture, I think, started to go back to this. And today, we are asking that everything is scalable. It's our phones, it is our apps, it is the world growing. We now need, in a way, we need to scale and to do it in a proper way. Otherwise, we're going to exhaust this world. And now really comes the question, because urban population is doubling, and that means a lot of construction. So what type of architecture, what type of construction do we need today? And who is the professional that is going to do that? Obviously, the architect, of course, we have embraced technology. Nobody has the drawing board anymore. It's the table where you put your computer. But I think technology is going to change our profession because many industries have radically changed. And there are things that we don't even question. The bank cashier, the retail salesperson, even the taxi drivers. Sure. Technology is changing these ways, and we need to think, how will this impact architecture? At the same time that architecture is much more needed. I think the pandemic accelerated many things. Being inside your house longer time, for sure, that for many people made them wonder, what is this? Why I don't have enough natural light? Why I cannot be comfortable more than 6 hours in my home? And it started to be, I say, a more conscious understanding of the built environment. Architecture, until recently, was something I think very distant, because there are some economics behind it that make it a little restrictive. Either you go into a mass housing project or the repetitions of a series, or if you commission directly an architect, it's going to have a high markup, because you run an architecture office, you need to pay salaries, the project takes time. You cannot do more than a handful of houses per year.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will need 100 people, and then all these dynamics, these economics start to change. But architecture, in a way, is expensive. Thanks to technology, architects can do more and better, and either lower the cost or make it more accessible. But I think that we're in that moment now, and more people are demanding architecture. Many people ask, I want to have a cabin in the beach or in the forest. I want a little cabin, but why does this process need to be so uncertain, so time consuming, and without a clear outcome? In the same way that today I have perhaps the best supercomputer ever existed, that I know how much it costs, how it works, I have it immediately, in an age in which I can ask a delivery for anything in any color, in any shape, why I cannot demand the same from architecture? And this today is happening.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. We touched upon this topic with Adewale, a property developer from London. We did 3 episodes on this, and we discussed how property developers can be a stop to the creativity of architects. So how all the rules that you have and the budget and the phases is restricted in a way for the architect to be creative and think about the user in the first place. So this is definitely something that is going on right now, because before COVID, developers were thinking about money and shrinking the meter squares as much as possible to fit in as many people as possible. And now the users have changed their mind. They want outside spaces. They want to be able to have their kids learning, doing school at home, and have an office in their house. So everything is shifting. Also, when you think about commercial estate and so on, so it's definitely a great opportunity now for architects to come up with new solutions that incorporate sustainability, but also well-being in general. We have a question from Seamus. I hope I say it right. Are you also intend to encourage architectural practices or companies to share their IFC or BIM models as an online preview tool on your website or any other place to allow young architects or designer have a chance to explore 3D environment of the space?
Oh, super good question, because the efficiency that we're seeing across many industries and this evolution has to do with interconnected systems where you reduce the extra steps and there's uncertainty. Yeah. And we're seeing that across the construction cycle, this can happen. The construction cycle is very, very complex and goes from the architect with the inspiration, the design thinking, developing something new, the relation with the client, project delivery, the relation with the contractor, the relation with all the specialists, going to the construction site, and the management of the life cycle of the building. This, I said in a simple way, but it's a super challenging and opaque cycle. BIM, for me, is one of the biggest revolutions, because it starts to interconnect many of the stakeholders. We can finally start to have a traceable model in which everybody can interact and eventually this even has an use during the life cycle of the building when we need to do remodelations, when you need to change something. So it's a very big, I think, promise. For me, the most important is that today, for example, the manufacturers really need to make available all the pieces, all the objects, and they need to make available across the large libraries that are today on the internet. This will help architects, again, not to reinvent the wheel, because architects do not need to spend time doing BIM blocks about something that everybody is already using.
Yeah.
So we are helping, evangelizing about this, pushing the manufacturers to make available, let's say, all the products, in a way, all the pieces for this complex network. And I hope that very soon we can have the first examples of publishing an existing building through BIM. This also has some technical complexities. The BIM masters that are listening to this understand it. We have done some, well, through Sketchfab, that is today the YouTube of 3D models. We have published some projects, but it's mostly the massing model. I hope that very soon, as technology is advancing, we can effectively share BIM objects to learn from others. We have been sharing in some articles, like some templates, like, because it's also very complex. There are to follow certain standards. They vary from country to country, from office to office sometimes. But I think that very soon, one standard will win over another, and finally, we are going to be able to share in a much, I would say, a structured way this kind of models and benefit from that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Sorry, I apologize for my dog. People know him by now.
Life.
Life. But I agree with you. And also another question that I had about that was, and people, please keep the question coming, because we have David here for like an hour or so. If you have any questions, please make the most of it and publish your question in the comments so we can answer it. My question to that was also, will you also be motivating people to give feedback on the projects? Because I was speaking with, on one of the episodes, with the Danish Royal Danish Architecture Institute, the equivalent of REBA or AIA in the US, and they did this whole research about how was the building performing for the users and sustainability after the delivery. And they started implementing ways to give it a mark in a way to really assess if the design is successful or not, because we always seems to see it in BIM, but then it's a completely different thing once it's built and then users are in it, right? Is that something that you gave a thought before?
Well, here I think there are two aspects, and one that I really like is this post-occupancy that Rem Kool has brought to, in a way, to the discussion of architects. I would say now it's almost 2 decades. But looking into projects after they have been used, because I think that there is also that condition, is the human life, how it is happening, how people are owning the building, something that we have also seen with Alejandro Aravena, with his progressive housing schemes. But on the other hand, there is the data, that the data is there and cannot be misinterpreted. And we're in the era of the Internet of Things, and we have been talking with some companies that are installing this, that are betting to understand better what is happening, especially in terms of interior comfort. That at the end, we as architects we try to design in a passive way for the best interior comfort, but it's very hard to measure if you do not do this post-occupancy kind of survey. And again, I think the BIM models, when they are used for the life cycle of the building, provide a centralized way to start to capture this data. Many people are doing assessment of public buildings, but this is just starting, and also it is being done in many different standards. We still do not have a let's say, big brother overview of all buildings, but it will happen. I think that in Europe, as there are very regulations that have to do with the energy consumption of buildings, is where this is happening before. And there is an interesting incentive, economical one and compliance one. But I think we still need to have the good case studies that some institution or some government will, in a way, produce the good case study that others can replicate. I think that this, in a way, has been a bit slow, but it's accelerating, especially with the low price that sensors are having.
Yeah, you're right. I completely agree with you. I'm going to move the conversation a little bit forward because we're going to run out of time otherwise. In your opinion, are there a lot of architects using their skills in other fields?
Yeah, well, at the end, what is architecture? And I'm very interested again to look back because, in a way, the Bauhaus and that type of education today still has a strong heritage on the way we learn today. And the architect, again, we, in a way, are trained on design thinking, in problem solving. We use abstraction. We use a lot of teamwork and collaboration to achieve our projects. And these are today skills that are very needed into different industries. If we look today at all the startups that are revolutionizing the way we live, we can see that these things start to appear. And architects are finding their place into new industries outside what will be the traditional architect building the house or doing a construction. Apple, the most valuable company in the world today, praises itself as a design company, not a hardware company. It's a design company. Architects, design thinking are finding their way there. And for me, I think that this maybe can open the understanding of this to who are listening to this conversation. To me today, the most influential architect is perhaps Evan Sharp. Evan Sharp is one of the founders of Pinterest. Pinterest is one of the top 10 largest consumer startups in the world. That is the architect's method. What do we do when we're researching something? We put together a board of references, we share with others, and he simply extrapolated what he knew as an architect, as someone working with design thinking, into a tool for do-it-yourself people, homeowners, chefs, etc. He extrapolated the world of architecture to the world. And I really like, because his profile on Pinterest says, Evan Sharp, ex-architect. They told him, you are an architect. This is an architectural creation. So it's very interesting to see how the boundaries of professions are blurring. And not just from the architects into others, but also others into architecture, because of what I was telling you before. Much more people want to enter into architecture. The tools are becoming very flat. Yesterday I was using Planner 5D, an online tool, in which you just upload a sketch of a floor plan, and it creates you a digital floor plan, extrudes the wall, and you have a very simple yet accurate 3D model. To move that into construction, in a few years, it will be trivial. And that is when we need to think, what is the architect? Because it's not the one drawing the floor plan, doing the 3D model. And with this, I don't want to be pessimistic, because actually it's the other, is that we're going to have the chance to really focus into what the architect is driving value, that is not to do that drawing or to do the model. So I am very hopeful into how this cross-pollinization and blurry boundaries in professions can mean for us, for architects.
Yeah, but I think it's very important what you said. Like, somehow architects sometimes are a little bit threatened by the fact that there's these new tools and people can all of the sudden become architects, whereas like we studied for years, for it. So there is a little bit of that, and that can also push some people to go to different fields and apply their skills in different fields for that reason. But you know, and as entrepreneur, probably you will relate to it, but as architects in general, we need to adapt to what is happening even in different fields, whether it's also these softwares that you mentioned. We need to keep up with it and make the most of it and innovate, because we can't just be the architect that draws floor plans on AutoCAD all our life. It doesn't work like this. We need to be open to also the world, to see a little bit how can we improve and tailor our value proposal more and more, so that we stay in the run as an architect profession. What is your opinion on that, on people that are a little bit pessimistic and feeling threatened by developers being able to develop and these softwares coming up and so on?
Of course, that when something new appears and then just what you're doing, our primal instinct is to be defensive. But I am very hopeful to see so many architects embracing this and understanding that they need to innovate. And this is not something new, because let's say when
Sure.
More than a decade, 2 decades ago, we started to talk about sustainable architecture. Of course, the world said we need to make buildings more efficient. And if you as an architect were not evolving your design to embrace in a proper way what it is sustainability, in a passive way, you will be left out. You will get less clients, you will get less work. So you have an incentive to evolve. And this, I think, it's interesting, because architects usually tend to be entrepreneurs. Start a little architecture office. So this is in our mindset. And I'm very happy to see architects that start to embrace innovation in different ways, from making your traditional architecture work more efficient through technology, more interconnected, to exploring other areas. I think the example that I told you before is the super, I would think, to the end of the spectrum, somebody creating a company for end consumers based on architectural knowledge. But inside, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking with some young architects who showed me a platform that they did, because now we're in a moment of crisis, and this was an office that was doing office design. Office design now is the less that the world is going to need. But their clients tend to be owners of a lot of office space. Actually, it's an opportunity, because of course they are going to get less commissions, but going proactively to them to say to them, hey, we need to digitalize all your real estate so you can be more efficient on approaching new clients. And they create a BIM interconnected platform to do this in a very interesting way. But the most important for me was they did it on their own, using no code. No code now is allowing everybody to do web apps or even mobile apps without having to learn how to code. Of course, there is a certain code in our logic, because it's a series of if, else, etc. But now with these tools, architects can really bring their ideas to reality without having to ask someone else to do it. I remember 5 years ago, everybody would struggle, because if you had a good idea and you wanted to execute it, you needed a CTO, you needed a tech partner. But now it is as simple as using these platforms, creating your own database. And architects, we have this in our mind in the same way when we're doing the specification with the materials. I think what is that? It is a database, has a hierarchy and order, and we can apply through technology the same to start to innovate. Of course, that when you are doing things in a certain way and they work, why would you do things in a different way? And then again comes something that I think is intrinsic to architecture. We always want to push the envelope, and that will naturally take us to evolve and also crisis forced us to evolve. So I think that now we're going to see in the next months, and I wouldn't say years, architects doing amazingly innovative things.
And that brings me to the way that Archdaily is actually innovating at the moment, right? So you guys are preparing something for the public, which I'm really excited to discuss with you. Would you like to present a little bit the problem that you saw in the field and what solution you brought onto the table?
Yeah, of course, because, well, we know that the construction cycle is very complex. And the existing business model of Archdaily is based on that. It's based on the recommendations, because we're showing you the best buildings from the world done by the best architects, and therefore with the best materials, or at least with trust solutions. I remember at the beginning when we started with Archdaily, me and my partner were doing architecture projects. We didn't know anything. We were young architects, but thanks to Archdaily, we knew very good architects. And we were like, hey, who was your supplier for ceilings? Who was the workshop? Where was the workshop that did the furniture for this project?
Yeah.
And they will say, they will share. They will say, no, this was the supplier. Maybe you can ask to this company. And it was a peer-to-peer recommendation. But then we understood we're publishing the best projects, so those are trusted manufacturers, trusted materials. And that is how we built the current business model of Archdaily, in which we connect the product, materials, manufacturers with the architects.
Yeah.
But in the last year, we realized that architecture, as we say, is complex. It's not just the architect and the contractor. There are many other stakeholders: landscape architects, lighting designers, quantity surveyors, BIM specialists. And this consultants network is usually very extensive, and it's also based on this trust. When you're an architect and you're working with the same contractor, after a couple of buildings, you know if they are doing the work good, and they know you.
Yeah.
So in this world, the recommendations are very important, but also to change has a big risk, because you don't know how it is going to come out unless you have seen what they do, or they are doing with some colleagues that you trust. So we are now expanding Archdaily into this value equation: the best projects by the best architects with the best consultants. And we are opening this so you can see which are the lighting designers, the MEP engineers that are working on certain projects, so you can connect to them, because architects need them and they need architects.
Yeah.
We have them in our database and we have architects, so we are opening this so consultants can actively showcase their work through the buildings that are on Archdaily and connect with architects for projects, and projects not only in your country. Now we're seeing much more architects working on a global way, and consultants are also doing the same. Sometimes they are your, let's say, a reach into a certain market when you want to do something, but you need the local support. And even architects act as consultants. Some go into specializations, landscape, lighting, etc. But architect of record, the local architect, architects collaborating with other architects, interior design. Now we're opening this network at Archdaily so the professionals can connect and hopefully do more and better.
Yeah, and you know, we had this conversation offline of how important it is to have this ability to connect to any professional anywhere in the world, right? So from my perspective, since my specialization was in international business development, the power to go onto a platform and be able to find either a local architect or a local engineer in that specific city that you're looking for, and you want someone that has done projects before, and you can view these projects and have these references, can shrink the timing of the business and networking part of things of the architect in a great way. So you waste much less time putting teams together and inquiring if the person has the same values or has the same experience as you, and if you can be complementary in the team. So I think it's extremely powerful. How important is it for architects to use PR and networking from your experience?
Yeah, well, I think that this is something that has been evolving, because before it was very professional, and we will be showing what we were doing and exchanging in architectural events to show to other architects, like I did this and everything that we talked before about architectural knowledge exchange. But now architects need to showcase their work, what they're doing, and what they are a specialist in, to try to get more business. At the end, there is, as we say, more people, and not just the end consumers, also more developers that are that know the value of good design, institutions that need to open their processes, do an international competition. So it's very important for architects to be out there. I think that today, to have a website is completely obvious, but when we started, it was not obvious for architects.
Yeah.
In the same way, and even I am so ashamed that I was thinking like this when Instagram started. I never thought that architects would be getting business on Instagram, but now I see so many architects embracing Instagram as an even better way than their website to showcase their work, to connect with potential clients. So that is why this is super important. And maybe I say that because at some point one would think that social networks were just about your personal sharing, but quickly social networks evolve in a more professional way. Well, we're talking now through LinkedIn, that is among professionals, but I think that Instagram did it in a very good way by having together a big ecosystem of different industries and different stakeholders, and to connect them. I think that today there is no architect that doesn't have either their personal professional or their office profile.
Yeah. For me, it has been a revelation with Clubhouse as well. Clubhouse has been extremely beneficial to architect because they were able to go into real estate rooms and, present their vision of things and their expertise to people directly in conversations, and manage to get jobs through there directly as well. So have you been on there? You did a talk a few months ago. That's how we met. But
Yes.
have you been using it also for your own business purpose?
With Clubhouse, I am very interested about what is happening to architecture because, well, I think every network has their own, let's say, approach. Instagram is very clear. But what I saw on Clubhouse, because it came from the world of Silicon Valley, startups, business, I think the architecture that developed there has to do with this, to how to generate business, how the architecture is seen as a business. And I started to see a complete new world. Like you are coaching architects on how to use the internet, how to use digital tools to generate. And I found that there is an interesting ecosystem of people like you pushing the business of architecture that didn't exist. I think the question of business development was before for the big firms, the firms that were actively investing on expanding the firm and doing a strong economical invest. But as it happens with everything, things are becoming more accessible, more closer, and small to medium business firms can enter into this dialogue, can learn, and I'm super happy to see. In a way, what you're doing, Julia, is what you were asking me before, how architects can innovate, how architects can enter into other sides of the industry. And I'm super happy that on Clubhouse this is happening, and I'm very happy that we connect in that conversation, because it really opened my mind into something that even in LinkedIn happens a bit, but I think in Clubhouse is happening in a very different way. And the value that architects can get from this network today, I think is very, very valuable.
Yeah, I mean, the power of Clubhouse is that you can directly connect, right? Like through Instagram and LinkedIn posts, you see pictures, you see videos, but it feels a little bit distant, right? But with Clubhouse, with the fact that you can interact directly with people, it allowed especially the young generation of architects to have the guts to go to real estate developers or any type of potential client and have no filter whatsoever to give their expertise. So it's also extremely exciting to see the young ones stepping up to entrepreneurship and stepping up to the business side of things and taking control of of innovation in a way, because those are somehow really motivated people. So that's what I'm pleased to see on Clubhouse for sure.
And especially because it extends, well, the architecture conference, the lecture is also part of our industry. That is how we exchange knowledge, we participate, we network. But with Clubhouse, we had that last part, the questions that happen at the end, and this more bidirectional kind of conversation that in architectural conferences gets relegated to the end or happens a bit like off the record. But through Clubhouse, that moment of connection and conversation extends.
Yeah, and it's truly amazing. So I'm also curious to see how that evolves as well. I wanted to ask the audience, I see that a lot of people are giving their opinion about architecture vs BIM and so on. But do you guys have any questions for David? Please publish them. We're just going to show you in the meantime Archdaily's new platform for the membership. Let me just share the screen in the meantime. Right. Can you see it with me?
Perfect. Yes, I do see it.
Okay. Would you like to comment a little bit how it works?
Yes. Here, what we have today is a database of more than 40,000 projects from around the world, and from which you can learn. You learn to the photos, to the drawings, to what the architect was thinking. But also now you are able to see who were the different participants in the project, the lighting designer, the quantity surveyor, the structural engineer, and you can also see which other projects they have done. Mm-hmm. So if for some reason you are looking for a structural engineer that is doing certain type of cantilever, you can find somebody who is doing something similar to what you do. The idea is that if you activate your profile, you are going to be able to receive these contacts through our platform. And also, we are going to have different packages so you can actively promote your work inside the network. This is a B2B kind of network. So it's between the consultants and the architects. And with this, we are starting to slightly opening architecture. So in Archdaily today, what you will find is a network of recommendations, of validated work, of trusted consultants. And if you are being mentioned in the projects, you can easily start to promote your work and your professional services.
Yeah, this is truly a great tool, especially like I'm thinking about business developers that take a lot of time to put together teams, or to even founders of architecture practices that are looking to network in a more easy way without having to go physically to networking events that cost a lot of money. Here they have everyone. They can contact anybody from the companies that are published in your magazine and be able to have a conversation offline together to see how they can collaborate, right?
And get more business and to do more better.
Yeah, exactly. But that's how innovation happens, because, very, very often we waste a lot of time in projects because, people don't have the same values, or they are not a match in terms of working together. But thanks to the references, you're able to really visualize what everyone is doing and how you can be complementary. So that's super important to speed up the process of an architecture project, which takes so long, So it is super important to take into account. So we have one last question. What has changed the sense of architecture today compared to its origin, in your opinion?
Oof, what a deep question. I've been talking about all of this evolution of the architect, and I really like a little text that I read from Rafael Moneo when he received the Prince of Asturias Prize a few years ago, in which he says architecture is a very primitive profession because it meant to give us a roof where we were moving from the caves into some construction, and architecture was that very primitive kind of role.
Yeah.
But then architecture started to take more and more, especially in the Renaissance, when the architects started to be like this master of doing many things. But then architecture started to go much more into the image, into representing the society or into representing the building. And slowly started to lose that more master builder, the master of everything, and started to go into just the one doing the image of the building. And because the society will specialize, there will be another specialist that was the builder that will turn that drawing into reality. So I am very happy to see that maybe now we're going back into this master from the Renaissance that is doing much more than just one thing. And it's very, very strange to see that perhaps what some architects are doing today with digital fabrication is much more closer to the architect of the Renaissance than to the evolution that we thought it was going to have. So I think that architecture, in a way, is constantly on a pendulum and happens. We're going perhaps into the more comprehensive master that was in the Renaissance, in the same way that we went through the international style and the generic architecture of the 90s, the regionalism that happened during the modern times, and the regionalism that we're seeing today of an architecture that is truly rooted to their local context. So all these pendulums, I think, are happening faster and faster. But I think that architecture, in a way, has the possibility to go back to its origins, thanks to technology, very paradoxically.
Yeah, that's very true. When was the time of crossing the chasm with your website breakthrough?
Oh, well, English is not my main language, and I have seen this expression, crossing the chasm, but I don't understand what it means.
I was also wondering about that, crossing the chasm. I guess it's the breakthrough.
Well, I think that the breakthrough was when we wanted to do this online publication, looking into the renowned paper magazines, and we started to see this, that what we were doing in Spanish was being used by people in China, in the US, in Japan, that they didn't speak English. So we said, we need to do this in English. Because the publishers are not doing, their business is to sell paper, is to sell subscription. They use the web for that, not to share openly content. And that's when Archdaily took that leap, when in 18 months, it went from founding at archdaily.com, the English version, into becoming the most visited website for architects on the internet. But at the end, that happened because of that, because we said, we need to do things in a different way. Very good that we didn't have a magazine, because maybe if we had, mentally we will be saying, no, we need to sell more paper. Let's use the web for that. And obviously it wouldn't have worked.
Great. And then last one from Christina. Is it planned to collect technical solution to put the focus and make more available environmental friendly solutions?
Well, we believe that the best, in a way, the best way to share the knowledge is through the building. For us, the building is the main unit on the database and in terms of architecture, and it is the case study. We learn through that. But also we do a strong editorial effort on going deep into, for example, comfort, bamboo building systems, And we bring this to the light through our editorial and materials section, but always trying to connect it to an existing or an ongoing building. Because at the end, for architects, we get the inspiration, of course, from seeing the spaces, from seeing the building, but there is, let's say, a missing part, that what happens between the walls, what happens in the technique of architecture, that of course is part of the inspiration, and we try that our library grows more and more and more with this.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for all these beautiful questions that were answered, David. I really appreciate you having time for joining us on the live, because it's very important. There is a lot of architects and also real estate developers that tune in every week, and they're always asking for knowledge and different perspective within the field. So thank you so much for taking the time for that. It was great having you. I was wondering, where can people find you and follow you?
Well, they can follow me at archdaily.com on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, but also us in a personal way at Basulto on all the social networks. And if anybody has a question or comment, you can make it here on LinkedIn, where I will happily connect with everybody after the session.
Yeah, thank you so much. And for us, you can always visit our website, theibdhub.com. So if you are you want to learn to grow your architecture and real estate company, just contact us or contact me directly on LinkedIn. I would be more than happy to answer your questions. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you, Julia, for the invitation. And again, congratulations for helping architects do better things on this digital world and help them navigate this complexity.
And thank you. That's worth a lot coming from you. So thanks a lot.